Hello everyone, this is Warrior Woman 91 and we finally got the live stream to work. It took forever and it took me driving from Starbucks to back here, and I was using an iPad and now I'm using a computer. We finally got everything live and now we can talk politics with other people besides just me spouting off. Even though apparently people find that entertaining, because the Periscope that I did a short while ago had like 600 views. So you guys need to get lives, but come on over to those of you who want to hear about political discussions and all the rest of it. Come right over here, because we have the expert on conservative politics from the Bay Area. We have Kyle Thompson here with us today, and it looks like we may have Elliot Hamilton here as well. So that's very fantastic. We just got started, and so today what we're going to be talking about is I'm going to start off with the whole CNN Trump tweet thing, because it's ridiculous. It's so absurd. It's so stupid that we're even talking about this foolishness. But just as a warning, if I start looking over in the wrong direction, it's just because there's an animal in my room. So aside from that, so let's get started with the CNN tweet. Let's start with Kyle. The audience up to speed, Kyle, on all the ridiculous foolishness that has been happening with just bring us back to the beginning. When what exactly did Trump tweet that set all this off?
Well, I was gonna say probably Elliot, because I've seen Elliot's Twitter feed and I know that he I think has talked about this more on his Twitter site than I have, but I will go ahead and start, and then maybe he can fill in some details if I forget anything. But so a few days ago, I guess it was the day before 4th of July, I think, if I remember, Donald Trump basically tweeted out this GIF that had been doctored up. And basically it was just a GIF of him back when he was involved with WWE wrestling. And there's a show that he did with Vince McMahon, and basically he at some point in the match he ends up going over, because it's all scripted and it's all part of the entertainment. He goes over and punches Vince McMahon, or fake punches really, and then takes him down to the ground and pins him. And so there's this whole bit of him beating up Vince McMahon. So the GIF, there's a GIF of that. And so somebody went in and basically changed the head of Vince McMahon and put the CNN logo over that. So the GIF that he tweeted out that came from the official @RealDonaldTrump account was that GIF where you see Donald Trump running over, and then, of course, what he did to Vince McMahon, it's the same. It's that GIF with the CNN logo on it. And so basically CNN, the Democrats, the left, CNN especially, reacted to that GIF. They were furious, they were upset, outraged, whatever you want to call it. And basically they tried to pinpoint how the GIF got out, and so they tried to pin it on this Redditor, who I forget the username, that they said it's something with Han Solo in it.
Yeah.
And so they tried to pin on it, and so they were threatening to dox the guy and basically expose his identity, but in a slanderous way, basically, which is borderline illegal. That is something that you could get in trouble with the law for, obviously. And so then we find out later that that user was not even really the real, that wasn't even his account on Reddit that linked, or that leaked the GIF, or that was where the GIF originated from. So it kind of all blew up in CNN's face, because they, one, were threatening to commit acts that were, like I said, borderline illegal, where you could really get into serious trouble with the law. and then it blew up in the face because they were trying to pin it on somebody who wasn't even at fault. Really, it didn't originate with them. So it was just a big mess. But it did highlight, you know, like seeing all of the outrage from CNN spokespeople and people that work at CNN and people on the left talking about how they viewed it as a violent act or some sort of assault on the press, or however they framed it, was, you know, just another example of why CNN is one of the worst networks out there, why they have such horrible ratings, why people are really just getting fed up with them, I think. So yeah, that's kind of my synopsis of the whole thing.
Okay, so just real quick, I want to share my screen because I finally found the original tweet in question, and it's absolutely hilarious. And let's see, can I pull this up? I don't know if this is gonna work. And so you guys are basically watching. Can you guys see it or no?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys can see the tweet. Oh my gosh, it's the greatest thing ever. Yes. Oh, I'm just a terrible person, but that just really makes me happy. All right, so let's. Yeah. So, hang on, let me get my screen back. All right. So, let's have Elliot go next. Elliot, the reaction. Obviously, this is not the way a president should be acting, or this is not something that a president should be posting on Twitter. Ben's reaction, it kind of it's reached epic proportions, and can you kind of go into why their reaction just kind of made the tweet from Trump irrelevant?
1936 called CNN. They want their brown shirts back. I think that's about sums it up, because these fools decided to respond to Trump sending out this gif of Trump smacking CNN, which, like, in all fairness, Trump really hasn't been smacking CNN. Rather, CNN has been smacking CNN. But it just goes back to the point that Trump derangement syndrome has hit CNN so hard in the mouth that all that's coming out of it is either bullshit or blood. And it's a disgusting mix of orifice material to come out of anywhere mixed together. And CNN just is responding not by being reasonable journalists, because CNN and reasonable journalism don't tend to work together, but they decided to go after the guy who created the GIF in the first place, and then almost threatened to dox him and reveal himself because he had posted some supposedly, allegedly anti-Semitic and racist memes. Well, this goes beyond simple journalism. This is just petty nonsense. It's just complete stupidity on the part of CNN, because you would expect that a reputable news organization, or one that describes itself as such, would respond to this in a manner that doesn't equate or doesn't stoop to a level lower than what the president did. Kelly, you're correct. The president shouldn't go out there posting GIFs of him beating the crap out of a news source, regardless of how fake it is. That being said, the way that CNN responded to it made them look far worse than Trump ever did. And it's either that this is some sort of manifestation of a human centipede between Donald Trump and CNN and the rest of the media, or CNN is just so out of their mind that they honestly believe the best thing for their ratings and the best thing that they should do in response to Trump's gift plus Project Veritas's completely pantsing of CNN and all of its staff members is to go out there and say, let's make ourselves look more douchey than we did before. That's going to get us more ratings, guys. Whoever came up with that definitely needs to get fired. That's really all.
That's kind of, yeah, that's kind of, I mean, I just look at Brian Stelter, for example, and he had gone on his show and was talking about what a terrible thing this was that Trump tweeted this and how he just feels victimized and he's pearl clutching and his bald head is radiating from the ceiling, and he's just that guy.
That's not like, like put down bald heads now, okay? So bald is beautiful.
Okay. But anyway, it's just okay. Somebody just walked in with an emergency. Teresa, go. Okay. Back to being on the live camera. Yeah, it's just absolutely absurd, the reaction. It was completely, it made what Trump did really was trivial, and the way CNN reacted by threatening a private citizen, we're going to release your identity, sir, step out of line. That's far beyond what Trump did. It really minimizes it. I mean, if they really wanted to hit Trump on that particular issue, they should not have escalated and made themselves look bad in the process. So, Aaron, what would have been the better way to respond to Trump's tweet?
Well, it would have been simple. It's just like, this is stupid and immature. That's all they do is say that. And then everyone would have sided with Trump. Sorry, with CNN. And then Trump loses. But instead, they had to say this is equivalent to incitement, and then they ended up threatening to dox the supposed GIF creator, and then it turns out that guy may not even created that GIF after all. So I mean, they really kicked themselves in the balls, basically. And it's like, I think it's based on Twitter. It's like, basically, from something stupid, media says, hold my beer. Trump says, no, you hold my beer. Media says, no, you hold my beer. It just goes on. And to the point where it's like Ben said, tweeted out something like, it's just like Trump and the media just farting on a human face forever. That's basically what it is. It's just that forever. And it's really hilarious, but it's also kind of sad when you think about the fact that our society is kind of crumbling. And I was kind of laughing at it.
That's the only thing we can do.
Oh, go ahead.
Exactly, right? It's like all I can do is just sit back and laugh as the world burns, right? So,
hey, who said that the end of the world was supposed to be sad and sombering and everything else, and just crack open a beer, just watch everything just tear itself apart? Honestly, I've been calling CNN for years, and none of this surprises me.
Same, it's really funny how people it's just like, Fox News is the right wing, MSNBC is the far left, and CNN's right in the middle. It's like, no, they're not. They're just as far left as MSNBC is. They're just not honest about it, which makes it worse. And I think that's why they're losing viewers, because people on the left are becoming so tribalized. And they're like, well, here on Trump Russia, even though you're hyping up every single day, so I'm just going to go hear what Rachel Maddow has to say instead. So they're hemorrhaging viewers both left and right. The numbers today I've seen it at 13th, right now in the ratings. I mean, Fox was number 1, MSNBC was number 2. You had HLN, TBS, Discovery maybe. All of those were ahead of CNN right there at 13. I mean, that's abysmal. And they're just going to continue to hemorrhage viewers if they keep doing shit like this.
Yeah, it's really... It's just embarrassing at this point. And I just get frustrated, and this is what I was talking about on my Periscope earlier, about how these media organizations, they're as these guardians of truth, and that they have this high moral position that they're supposed to, hold powerful people accountable and so on and so forth. And it's just a big load of crap. They are the powerful people, and that is why the American people affected the media so much. But just as a further example, we look at the whole deal with Joe and Mika on Morning Joe, and how they totally made that whole debacle about them. It was a manufactured story, manufactured manufactured outrage. Mika went after Trump, knowing that he would respond in an immature, and he did. And then everybody was like, "Oh, we feel so bad for Mika because Donald Trump went after her," and now their ratings have. I saw that story this morning after having said this is exactly what the purpose was last night, and then the story comes out today, and it's exactly what happened. It wasn't about news. It's not about being guardians of some high moral truth. It's about them and making themselves the news. So, do you guys have any good examples of like legitimate, solid journalists? Possibly. I mean, I know that Shapiro kind of mentioned that he sort of likes Jake Tapper, that he kind of makes an effort to be somewhat objective. But are there any people that you guys would say are really stand-up like type journalists?
I would say I think the first that comes to mind is definitely Eli Lake. Over at Bloomberg. He does a very solid job. And yeah, he has opinions, obviously, but he does a good job of remaining objective and being honest about his opinions and so forth. So he does a really solid job reporting. Let's see. I think the Free Bacon has a lot of solid reporters there. There's my buddy Dan Weiser, who works there, does some good stuff. Let's see, Adam Credo's had some good scoops lately.
Credo is the boss. And
I never met him personally, but the Free Bacon just seems like just a boss atmosphere from what I've heard about it. So those are the first that come to mind. There's I would say like in general, like the Daily Caller has overall some good reporting. I mean, if we get past like all the boop and stuff on that website, like there's actually some good reporting done there. And let's see, Wall Street Journal has some good reporting too. I think those are like the first. Also, Daily Wire, of course, we have the best reporting, obviously.
Seems like raising my hands is like, hi, we're all part of the same state.
Exactly, we are. Yeah, no. So
I think we do like in all fairness, yes, we do a much better job. I think somebody called me out the other day of being a bad journalist because I called out Planned Parenthood and said, oh, by the way, and this guy got mad because I didn't say that the Planned Parenthood videos were doctored. It's like, well, you can't doctor what people ended up saying. Like,
doctor what? I mean, yeah, they were edited because they were like 2-3 hours rich. Like, no one's gonna watch 3 hours of video, so of course we edited down to like 10 minutes and so forth. But still, like, they made the full videos available. So it's like, well, if they were really like, distorting things, why would they release the full video?
Yeah,
so it just makes no sense. The thing is, it's like as Ben Shapiro likes to say, it's like everyone has a bias. You just have to admit to it. We admit the fact that we're writers on a website. We're honest about what we believe in, which is what makes our reporting so good because we are honest what we believe in, and we try and stay as close, and we try to stick to the facts. And if we get something wrong, call us out, and we'll correct it.
Exactly, and that's what journalism should be. It's like if CNN, like that's the problem ultimately with CNN. CNN wants to say that it's hashtag real news. You see like Jim Acosta trying to hold up a sign, like Michelle Obama's like hashtag bring back our girls, hashtag real news. It's like walking around like a little like delusional like psychopathic guy just rocking back and forth on his rocking chair, just like I'm real news, guys. I'm real news. Really, trust me, guys. I'm real news. But we all know that these people are such hacks, and they don't like to admit it. Wolf Blitzer, God bless his soul, he is a fraternity. He is an A Pi brother just like I am.
Okay, I know that.
Guy is a putz.
Yeah, it's putting it mildly. People probably forgot about this, but there was like 2005 during Hurricane Katrina. I think Wolf Blitzer said something on lines of, "Man, I feel so bad for these victims here. They're so poor and they're so black." Now, I think that if someone like Handy would ever say that, that'd be the end of their careers. Now, Wolf Blitzer says that move on, and there's nothing to see here. Everyone forgets about it. And so back to your point about the hack, about CNN being hacked. So like today, Jim Acosta, you're talking about, like today, he tweeted out that Trump called on someone from like a conservative news outlet, and he's like, man, how can you brand about fake news and then call on somebody from a news outlet that's supportive of you? But then the next guy he called on was from MSNBC, which is obviously not supportive of Trump. And so Acosta basically perpetuated fake news. So it's like, no, Jim, you are not real news. You're fake. And when you say you are, you come across like a whiny bitch. So just cut the crap, man.
No, and even worse. This was the grandest irony. It was like, what did every other president, especially the last president, do when it came to the media? Well, oftentimes they would like to talk to the more favorable guys, and I mean, Obama was the perfect example. Do you really think Josh Earnest was really eager to go out there and talk to Fox News when Fox News was about ready to hound him? Like, come on, let's be honest. In some way, shape, and form, and this really became more apparent during the Obama years, politicians have been very selective when it comes to talking to the press. I don't expect. I mean, would we really expect somebody like an Elizabeth Warren to show her like Pocahontas' face somewhere up in Fox News? Probably not. But you would expect her to show up at MSNBC. Hell, I would expect her at Young Turks if Young Turks could actually be like slightly toned down from its nonsensical idiocy. But
which is impossible. But
the
all right, I want to make sure that Kyle gets back in here too. So Kyle,
whatever. Come on, Kyle. Don't be so afraid of it.
So basically, the same question, Kyle. Where exactly would you recommend people go for not unbiased news, because there's no such thing, but news where the journalists actually care about trying to be objective, making an effort to put facts out there without just skewing it in whatever direction?
I recommend C-SPAN, really. I think that's going to be the most.
Watch out those House hearings, man.
I think that's going to be your most objective. You know, I think it's hard. It's hard to step out of bias. I think even. I mean, I'm not a journalist myself, but I can imagine as a journalist, sometimes it's hard to not even just tease your bias a little bit in something, but people do it. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of great reporting going on amidst all of the fake news and all of the hacks, as Elliot says. Someone like that I think about that I've always been impressed with is like as far as Fox News goes, like most of them are biased, right? And most of them are, you can totally tell which slant they lean on. But I've always actually been really impressed with Bret Baier. I think Bret Baier is very fair, and I think that he keeps his, like, I don't know. I honestly don't know if he's a Democrat or Republican. He works for Fox News, so I tend to think that he is a Republican, but I wouldn't be able to tell by his reporting. And someone else that I always thought was interesting was his name's Matt Lee. He's at the Associated Press. Yeah. And he was often one of the guys in the that would go and question these people from the Obama like State Department, especially during the Iran deal. And I've always thought that his like lines of questioning and his reporting was always very solid. You know, for the Associated Press, it's like you kind of expect things to be a certain slant, just like you would with Fox News, you know, but I always thought that he was really solid. But yeah, I really like Eli Lake. Eli Lake is a great reporter, great journalist. So yeah, I don't know. You kind of just have to find people that you feel like you can trust. I think, you know, but like I said, like, I think more and more people should watch C-SPAN. And like, I know people might think that's a joke. Like, I'm being serious. Like, C-SPAN allows you to just take things as it is, and you can form your own opinions. The problem is it's not entertaining, you know, for people that are not political junkies. So that's why I think, you know, all these other news shows do so much better than C-SPAN does. But like, as far as like honest reporting, you know, you have to kind of do your own searching, in my opinion. But
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely enough of a junkie that I can admit to having watched C-SPAN for an extended period of time. So yeah, I don't find it a joke at all. I think so. Kyle's point. Yeah,
so I was gonna say, it's so interesting because I talk to people, you know, like my family and friends and people that I know from school and from work and stuff, and like the number one thing that comes up when you bring up the news is like people are like hungry for like real truth, because there's so much now that everything is so biased and polarized, there's so much of it, like people don't know what to believe anymore. And so people are always asking me like, hey, where can I go to find like just an objective or a solid, like, here are the facts, here's the simple, like distilled version of like the objective version. And sometimes I don't know what to say. Like I say C-SPAN, like I tell them, oh, watch C-SPAN. But like, you know, as far as like things that are not on C-SPAN, it's kind of hard to find, you know, stuff. So I often recommend the Daily Wire. But,
choice.
but you know, it's just, it is tough. It is tough to find honest reporting, you know, here in the information age. It's hard to find honest reporters because politics get in the way and people's personal agendas get in the way. And so I think it's kind of interesting how that is. But I know people are hungry for the truth, you know, because they're so fed up with CNN and Fox and MSNBC, and everyone has a different bias and everyone has their own agenda, you know.
Yeah, the thing I was just going to bring up is the fact that the thing like C-SPAN, you know, would be actual, just here are the facts, you figure it out. And I think that's why people don't watch it, because people not only informed about what just happened, but what they should think about it. And so I think that that's why these shows, whether they're on the left or the right, whether it's Sean Hannity or Chris Hayes or The Morning Joe or whatever it is, people want to hear what's going to confirm their preconceived bias or whatever it is, and that's why it sells.
Also because like C-SPAN, like they typically broadcast like hearings or this guy's speech from National Press Club and so forth. Nobody wants to watch a hearing like all the way through, unless it's like, you know, James Comey's hearing, which was like hyped up as like Super Bowl 51, whatever Super Bowl on now, but basically hyped up like the Super Bowl basically, you know. But otherwise, just kind of like when someone's testifying about like energy, who wants to watch that? You know, I mean, it's only us junkies like to watch that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think Kelly, you bring up an interesting thing, because people do want to hear people that agree with them, right? Or that, like you said, reaffirm their own opinions and values and morals and things that they believe in. Which it's interesting because it's kind of sad. Like I feel like I learn more. Like I don't get me wrong, I love to listen to people that I respect and that agree with me, but I almost learn more when I listen to people that have opposite opinions, because then it forces you to challenge their opinions, right? And say, no, I disagree with you because such and such and such. So it kind of makes you have to think more, you know. And I think people, like, part of it is people are kind of, like you said, they're kind of lazy. Like they kind of want people to tell them how to think about something or how to feel about something, because they don't want to have to like go and figure it out on their own, you know. But yeah, it's kind of sad that that's how it is. But I do think the natural, like, human nature is to want to listen to people that agree with you, you know, and reaffirm those things. But
yeah, I've had a similar experience as what you've just described, in that people want to know facts and want to know what's right, but they don't want to know. That it's almost like that desire for that knowledge doesn't last very long. Like they'll ask you a question and then you'll explain it and then it'll go over their heads and they'll move on to the next thing. So they would just rather this. It's kind of it is the information age. It's the sound bite. We just want that quick little thing to tell us what we need to think about said topic, and then we can move on. So I don't know if Aaron continued the subject, but I do have a second topic for this evening. So if there's no more discussion on that, we pretty much.
Can I say one more thing? Let me just say one more thing. I think there's also a cultural component, especially now because of the way that things are. You know, with President Trump in office, there's almost like this cultural element. Like it's almost like it's cool to hate Donald Trump. Like it's like you may not know anything about Donald Trump, you may not know anything about what's going on in the news, but like if you say, yeah, like if you go out with your friends and you're like, yeah, Donald Trump, F that guy, or like what, you know what I'm saying? Just it's almost like it's like the new like you're in the in crowd now because you said something bad about Donald Trump, or you made a Trump joke, or you like did something. And so I think it's kind of interesting how like people, like some people don't even care about the news or like what is being reported because they're just going to be so dug into their, I mean, on both sides, but like, you know, it's just kind of, I think there is a cultural element that kind of plays into that too, but I don't know.
All right, so the other subject that I wanted to kind of cover tonight was the whole deal with the Charlie Gard issue. This is, again, why I get so frustrated with that. You know, the main news topic has been CNN, foolish GIFs, and now we need to threaten people, or it's Mika and Joe and their stupid little tiff with Trump. When you've got a 10-month-old child that's fighting for his life, I don't feel like this is being covered to the level that it should be. So I'm going to start with Aaron on this topic. Just for those of our audience that aren't following it, tell us a little bit about what's been going on.
Yeah, so basically, you have this 10-month-old kid named Charlie Gard, and he was born. He has this sort of like rare condition. I think it's like mitochondrial disease. Basically, so it's like only 16 people in the world have it, and it's basically something where it causes your body to sort of like shut down because it can't process energy properly. And basically, there's no cure for it, but there is an experimental drug, in the U.S. I think that you could take it, you know, and maybe it wouldn't work, but at least you try it, you know. But
right.
The UK courts have said, nope, sorry, you can't do it. It's like it's not gonna do anything to help him. It's, you know, it just be a waste of resources. You know, it's just better let him die here, basically. And you know, even they can't. They can't leave. You know, the UK court said they can't leave to go to the US to get treatment there, and the UK court said they can't go to the Vatican and get treatment. So the UK court basically saying, you know what, your kid's gonna die, basically. And this is literally 1984 stuff. This is Orwellian 1984 authoritarian stuff. I mean, they're basically telling these parents what they have to do with their baby. I mean, that is tyranny right there. And it goes to show, like, you know, when we warn about like single payer universal health care, it's not just the fact that it sucks. It's the fact that it's actually a serious encroachment upon liberty. This right here shows like how tyrannical it gets when you have the government running your healthcare, and it goes to show like how that does lead to even more tyranny down the road. That's why it's so imperative that we avoid single-payer universal healthcare. But I mean, at this rate, we're headed on a path toward it, you know, because Obamacare is here to stay. The Republicans don't want to repeal it. So, I mean, Charlie Gard is, you know, this is our future. You know, this is our future unless Obamacare gets repealed.
Yeah, I just want to kind of have Elliot touch on this a little bit, because this is basically a microcosm of what socialized healthcare is, and this is what, you know, the socialists want to bring to the United States. They want this kind of system. So, can you kind of explain to the audience why universal healthcare results in these kinds of decisions by courts being made, basically these death panels deciding who lives and who dies?
So there are three elements to healthcare generally, and two of them, and you can only choose two. You can either have it's affordability, universality, and quality. And in the United States, we pride ourselves on having some of the best quality healthcare because we have, as long as you can pay for it and we have insurance to cover for it, you can get some of the most advanced treatments for some of the worst diseases known to man in the United States that would otherwise be harder, if not impossible, to get anywhere else. And we also try, and with our system, we also try, but not exactly to the best of our abilities, but we at least try to make them affordable and accessible to others. And what we sacrifice for that is universality. And the reason why that is the case is that if you try to make everything universal under the guise that healthcare is a human right, then you are going to have to find a way to try to enforce that right. Rights are things, as we define them, especially in our system of governance, those are things that were endowed by our creator. We were just celebrating the great moment in which Lockean philosophy became international law with the Declaration of Independence, that there were certain things that were inalienable about our lives: life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, which would eventually be translated to free speech, free press, free exercise of religion, gun ownership, having a right to not being searched without a warrant, due process, you name them all. But the left has argued for the last couple of decades that healthcare, like affordable housing, like practically everything under the sun, which is really a good or a service, is a human right. And once you start going down the path that this is a human right, you're going to try to find any way and any means necessary to make that right materialize. What's the way that the left sees that materializing? It's the government. So by that logic, you have to allow the government to find the best means necessary to make healthcare a quote-unquote right accessible to everybody else. That eliminates the choice elements that individuals have, like Charlie Gard's parents, to seek better treatment. Because if the government is going to control who is able to get certain treatments because of some arbitrary list or some arbitrary like status or criteria, then it opens the door to allowing the government to determine who lives and who dies. And that is the consequence of allowing the government to, like ceding your ability to make a choice to the government in the hopes that you make it more accessible and then you make it more affordable. Quality ultimately goes down. And this should be a warning to Americans who claim to care about accessibility and affordability of healthcare without recognizing the consequences of trying to put the United States, which has no reason whatsoever to get itself involved in healthcare, more involved into a system that is far more complicated than anyone wants to admit. There's too many people in the United States. It's not a bad thing that we have 300 million people in the United States, but when it comes to issues of healthcare, there is ultimately a cost element, and because we are such a melting pot, there are different cultural norms, and because there are different cultural norms, that food and other acts, other healthy or unhealthy behaviors could be seen in some populations more than others, and you can't standardize a certain healthcare system without trying to impose on other people's rights to live however they wish. Remember, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. The only way that you can try to implement and enforce this type of universality is by having the government hold a gun to your head and say, do this or else.
Yeah, I think so many people seem to conflate having insurance is access, and that's
Aaron,
just not.
hang on, we're having an audio problem here.
All right.
Do you guys hear an echo with me?
Nope.
Not now.
Okay, Aaron, start talking again. Let's see what happens.
Okay, are we good? Okay, we're good. No echo. So
Yeah,
so many people conflate like having. Many people think that having insurance means you have access. It doesn't. I mean, North Korea, everyone has insurance, but nobody has access there because it sucks. You know, I mean, it's an extreme example, but it's an extreme example to prove a point. You know, because the fact is that just because you have insurance doesn't mean you get access to good quality healthcare. It's like I was saying earlier. There's three aspects about healthcare: universality, affordability, quality. You can only have two. So, you know, if you have universality and affordability, then the coverage is going to suck. If you have universality and quality, then it's going to be through the roof. The cost will be through the roof, either through high taxes or high premiums. The only really good answer is affordability and quality. Just get the government out of healthcare, which it hasn't been for like over 100 years, and just the insurance should be able to offer any type of plan that they want to. People should be able to have the kind of health plan they want to. They should be able to put as much money into health savings accounts as they want to. That's how it should be. That's how you create a system where healthcare is truly a commodity that's affordable for everybody. People can choose the plan that fits them. That's how it is for food. That's how it is for cell phones. That's how it is for most things, but not for healthcare, because the left thinks that, you know, that somehow it's a humane thing, make it right. It's not. It's not. I mean, Charlie Gard proves that it's not humane. So, I mean, really, it's better basic economics, because when you take the profit incentive out of healthcare, then all of a sudden you have this influx of demand by making it universal, and then without the profit incentive, then you have a lack of supply of doctors to handle all that demand. Therefore, you have rationing, you have shortages, and that's what makes the Charlie Gard thing happen.
So I want to make sure Kyle gets back in here too. Basically, I don't know how closely Kyle has been following this, but as I understand it, so the UK government is a socialized system. They have to make decisions based on what they can afford, and they've decided that they cannot afford to send Charlie Gard to the United States for treatment. So the parents raise dollars of their own money and money people have donated to them to send Charlie Gard to the U.S. The court is still saying that they can't do that, and the hospital will not allow them to even take Charlie Gard home so that he can at least die at home. They will not let the child leave the hospital. So that's why it's so disturbing. They, even as private people, they're not allowed to decide for their child what they want to do for him. They're saying that he needs to die with dignity. And so I just want to hear what Kyle's response is. Basically, why exactly are these judges saying that even though they can pay for it privately, still, and even though there's been such public outcry, they still are saying, no, you cannot take him to the U.S.?
My opinion is that they, I think that they see this as a potential door opening, basically, where if they allow Charlie Gard to kind of, wedge his way into the system, wedge his way, actually, in this case, out of the system, that this sort of situation could happen with other people in the UK, depending on how serious their illness is. And I think that they see that as a threat to the healthcare system in the UK, which they want to keep intact, because I believe that the judges actually like it that way, because it keeps those in power in power. And so I think that they see it as a potential threat. I don't know if it really is like one person, if that would really spark a chain of other cases where people in the UK are seeking treatment and would want to do a similar thing if Charlie Gard was able to go to the Vatican or to the United States. So I think that is the reason why that the judges feel threatened by this, or at least are not allowing it. I think that there's some sort of also, like, I don't think that the judges appreciate, honestly, Donald Trump intervening in like British affairs, which is kind of weird, because I was under the impression that, well, at least these judges, right? Because I don't feel that they are very big fans of his. I think that the prime minister, seems to have a more friendly relationship with him. So I feel like if Donald Trump really wanted to get Charlie Gard out of the UK, I think it would be smart for him to kind of apply a little bit more pressure on Theresa May, especially at, right now they're gathering in Europe, for the G20 talks. So it'd be good for him to talk to her, and try to get this going, and see if there's something that she could do. I don't know really what she could do, because it seems like all the courts have made this opinion. So I don't really know how viable, there is, if there is a hope that he could get treated outside the UK or could even leave the hospital. But I do think that they see it as, now this has gotten international attention, and if Charlie Gard was to leave the hospital, then it's a victory for the free market, or people that are against single payer healthcare and against socialized medicine, because this has now gotten such attention. And so I think that's why the courts are really digging in to make sure that it doesn't happen, because then it challenges the system in the UK, which they want to preserve, because it keeps them, in power in their little socialist fiefdom. That's my opinion.
It's really the perfect example of how of collectivism, right? It's the idea that it's like, it's like you're really significant. What matters is collective as a whole. It's a way of dehumanizing the individual. And so the courts don't view Charlie Gard as a human being. They view him as a cognitive system. It's like, okay, it's their system, on to the next one. It's a very inhumane way of looking at people and how to run a society. But that's unfortunately what happens when you have tyranny. Because all forms of tyranny are built on the idea that people aren't people; they're the masses. It's the collective. It's about collective salvation, and if you sacrifice liberty to do so, it's what you have to do for the good of the people. That kind of thing. And it is very. And one other thing too, you notice how it's like Trump tweets about Charlie Gard when there's no coverage at all. It's like very scant. I remember Brian Stelter, like when Trump first tweeted out that GIF of him pummeling CNN, Brian Stelter's like, we must cover every tweet of Trump's because it's important. He's the president. Then Trump tweets out, support for Charlie Gard, silence from Brian Stelter. It's like CNN had like one write-up or something about it, and that was it. I mean, like the coverage of Trump's tweet on Charlie Gard was so scant, but yet they spent like 24/7 on that GIF. So, I mean, that right there is a good example of how the media is being complicit in letting the UK system like get away with what they're doing in Charlie Gard.
I think that I think that this incident or this situation highlights the immorality of single-payer healthcare. It highlights the immorality of socialized medicine. I mean, it's the quintessential. It's the quintessential Exhibit A. And like Elliot was pointing out about how it's not socialized medicine gets to a point where it's not affordable. People think it's affordable. It's predicated by its proponents that it is affordable, and yet it's not. In fact, it raises costs for everyone. I mean, the fact that the parents had to raise all of this money, but even that, I mean, when you get the Pope involved, the Pope is, you have the Pope, you have Donald Trump, who has been promoting, kind of the freedom of religion and promoting that standard and that principle that we have here in the United States. And this is really anti to that. I mean, it's the fact that the government plays God and decides who lives, who dies, because they are the ones in power. And so I think that this, like I said, it's a quintessential showcase of what of the immorality of socialized medicine. I mean, honestly, Sarah Palin was right back years ago when she said that Obamacare would essentially have death panels. This is a death panel, basically saying who decides who gets to live and who gets to die. And that, like you said, Aaron, it's a scary place to be.
All right. So unless there's any other follow-up discussion or statements people want to make on this, the point is just that I really wish that this story would actually get the coverage that it deserves, because this story and the story of Otto Warmbier, which just completely is gone from the media now, which I think, again, is journalistic malpractice. Countries have gone to war over less. And for those two stories to have gotten, the scanty coverage that they have is really, it's shameful. It's really a disgrace. So that's my final positive point for the evening. So, do we have?
I do have a breaking news story.
Okay, go ahead. We got it.
So apparently there was, right after the Supreme Court allowed Trump's quote-unquote Muslim ban, to actually it's really a travel ban, to go through, the state of Hawaii decided to try to extend the exceptions to the travel ban more so, and filed a motion to extend it with the federal district court there, and the same judge who went against Trump months ago pretty much denied the motion and said, bring the matter back to the Supreme Court. So,
Rare victory. Okay.
So, activist judge finally saying an activist judge did what he was supposed to do
For once.
Why do you think that? I mean, do you think he just kind of gave up and was like, yeah, you know, they're just going to bounce it back anyway?
No, it's just standard protocol. Then at this point, that whether you like the Supreme Court or not as a judge, and the same thing just goes with the law in general. That in his position, he has to understand what his limitations as a federal district judge are, and said, look, the best thing you need to do is bring it. This is going to be dealt with in the Supreme Court. Just leave it at that. Like, this is superfluous nonsense.
He probably realized that he was, being a disgrace. Actually, he probably realized that he looked foolish. I mean, because he was seizing authority that's not given to him by the Constitution. Hopefully
I don't
that's
think
the
he
case.
cares, quite frankly.
Yeah,
I don't think that he cares.
I think it was more just like Elliot said, it's just standard protocol, because it's like, yeah, the Supreme Court already ruled on it, and the State Department and the Supreme Court was based on this. Well, okay, I think probably the judge had to abide by how the State Department defines close family, and that's probably where it gets to the federal judge, right? So I mean, that's probably what it came down to.
Well, what I'm saying is, though, when you realize that where the trend is going, I think sometimes these judges want to save face and they want to save their reputation, and they don't want to go down in history as violating the Constitution or doing things when history is going to show an alternative. So I think that's what is happening there, in my opinion.
All right, so I think that's our final topic for today. Thank you guys all for coming. Do we want to do shout-outs or no?
Nah, no need.
Yeah, I don't have anybody really to shout out. Everybody's pretty boring. Although I do want to make one quick announcement. Michael Knowles is getting his own podcast. It was just announced today officially. I don't know what the name of the podcast.
Steak. All people get a new show.
I think that we're all getting sick of Michael Knowles winning. I'm hoping I will have him on the show, not the next episode, but I'm going to try and get him on for the following episode so he can talk about all of his laurels and how he is just the most amazing person in the world, apparently, and he's got a best-selling book deal, and the next thing he'll be senator from California next to Dianne Feinstein. With Kamala Harris as president, of course. So, on that happy note,
can you really just not? No, just no. I love Michael, but jeez,
it is real. All right, so we're gonna go off the air now, guys. Thank you all for coming.